So today what I want to show you guys is just some of the basics as far as giving your cube and your sphere colors and textures. Okay, now I'm just going to scratch the surface here. I mean, literally, this is just the beginning. The amount of complexity that you can get into with texturing and getting surface and UV maps and all sorts of stuff with Blender is really considerably complicated. And we're not going to go there. Okay, we're not spending too much time on this project. I want to get to the next one soon. But obviously, if everything is just kind of this fakey looking gray color, it's going to be a very boring animation. So we're going to right-click on one of your objects. Doesn't matter. And you know, this is, you can do a lot of times texturing and stuff like that is I mean, you can do it at any point in time in the animation. A lot of times it's done later, just because you want to get the motions correct. And as you start to add mass amounts of texture and stuff, it can start to slow the computer down, depending upon what mode you have it set to down here. Okay, so right here you can set it to just wireframe, solid, or textured. If you have it set to textured, then things go really, really slow. If you have it to solid, you'll notice that something interesting happens, and that is as I start to change the surface colors and the textures on my objects, you don't see it. You kind of see a general change in color to the object, but you're not going to actually see the textures until we go and we render a frame, okay, and take a look at it. And so that's actually going to be rather important, is to kind of take a look at rendering a frame and so on and so forth. And a lot of times I'll even set up a separate, this is really complex, I'll let you guys figure this out, but I'll set up a second camera, okay, where I can take a look at an object, just put it right in front of the object, do my work, get one object looking good, move the camera over, point it at the second object, do whatever I'm doing, and get it looking good. The other thing that's really important to realize here is also your light. Where your light is and the fact that you have one is actually really important. Because if you don't have a light in your scene, you've deleted it, or it's really far away now because you moved it because it was bothering you or whatever, that's bad. Because obviously if you don't have light, you can't see the colors and the textures, right? Okay? So when you go to test this, it's going to look pretty bad, okay? We'll deal a little bit more with rendering and lights and stuff like that in good time. But anyway, what I want to do here is I'm just going to make this a little bit larger. I'm going to right-click on my, let's right-click on the sphere. And one of the other things that we can go to even to the animation window, so I can just kind of see what my camera's looking at here, which is good. We'll just kind of make things a little smaller. We don't really need those right now. So the sphere is right up front and the cube's right there, so no matter what I do at this point in time, I'll be able to see my my stuff at a pretty good moment in time. This will work right here. So now I've clicked on my sphere, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and then there's actually two buttons here. There's materials, and then there's textures. And you have to start with the materials, really. The material basically sets a base. It's kind of almost like painting for those of you who are painters. You always set a base color, and then you go back in and you work with textures and highlights and shadows and stuff later on. And you'll notice that right now there is no material for my object, okay? So you can hit the plus or the new or whatever. And, well, actually, no, you have to hit the new button. There you go. So you're going to hit new and you're going to get a material. You can name it whatever you want, because sometimes you can also go back and choose the same material. Not sometimes, you always can. So let's say you make a really great wood texture, okay, for hardwood floors or something, and then you want to use it in the next scene. There you get a list of materials, and like, oh, that's this material, and you can just choose it, and then it pops in on the new on your new object, whatever. Okay, so it's pretty cool. So we'll just call this sphere material. Helps if I can spell. There you go. And type. So I've got this sphere material, and you can see that once I've done this, there's a lot of options here, okay? I mean, and half of them are closed, and we're really not even going to go over most of them. I'm going to go over the basics, and I'm going to let you explore, just so that you can kind of get an idea. And I'll be honest with you too, as I've played around with textures in Blender, I'll start doing stuff, and then I get like a half an hour into something because I've lost track of time because it's so fun, and all of a sudden I've made a mistake somewhere along the line, and I have no freaking clue what I've done. And I start undoing things and trying to change things, and it's just totally destroyed. Just go up here and delete the material and start all over again sometimes. I mean, it's honestly just easier, okay? And it stinks, but you'll learn pretty good that way too. So anyway, the basics are this. Right here you have what we call diffuse color, and you've got a little preview here. Trust the preview for the most part right now. Don't trust what's in the 3D view because it won't really look good. And you can set the preview to several different options here. Okay, particles and hair strands. Okay, sphere with the sky behind it, so you can see that what it looks like. And there's some nice stuff here, or a flat plane. But I like looking at it usually in a sphere or cube. Just because it gives you a sense of how it's going to wrap around the object. When you click on the diffuse thing, okay, it's going to give you color chooser. And you'll notice that as I choose a certain color, okay, that color becomes the diffuse color of my object. And I can adjust the intensity of that color, which gives it kind of like a brightness, okay. Then below it is the specular. This controls the color and the intensity of the highlight. So right now it's set to white, which is usually what you want it to be set to. And you can take a look. Watch the highlight here. See, it's nice. It's got a soft edge to it. Okay. I can increase the hardness of that. Okay. And just make it a really sharp, hard highlight. Now, what's the difference? What do you see the difference between this versus the other? What kind of material has a really sharp, hard highlight? Just give me an example. Somebody think of one. Have you ever noticed? No? Well, this is good. So when you're drawing stuff, okay, when I've been making you guys do sketchbook assignments all year long, okay, these are the things that you should be paying attention to. Hard, sharp highlights like this, shiny plastics, glass, metal. Okay, that's what these things are. And in fact, you might not look like a real shiny material yet, but that's because I haven't started with the mirroring. If I start changing the reflectivity, see, I can close these here, which is really nice, by the way, and I start bumping up the reflectivity, you can start seeing that the environment is going to be reflected in the surface of the object. Okay? Now it's starting to look like like a glass marble or something like that, you see? But it's really important for you to understand and really think about what kind of material am I looking for and what's the highlight going to look like, because that's humongous. If I take my specular now and I take the hardness, whoops, down, you know, to this, that for some reason that doesn't look right with the reflectivity really. It shouldn't have this really diffuse highlight if it's going to be a shiny, hard, you know, metallic or glass object. It's going to have what we call specular highlight, which on really high-end items like that is actually it's a reflection is what it is. You know, it's a place where the reflection basically gets blown out because of the light. So anyway, you have, I mean, you can decrease the intensity to make it, you know, look less intense. So you have a lot of options here. It's really cool what you can do with a lot of this stuff. You can make objects transparent. So here I can make it whoops, check it. And I can play with different, the alpha here is the transparency. At 1, the object is opaque. We'll just say set to Z transparency. At 1, the object is opaque. As you go less and less and less, you'll notice the object becomes see-through. Okay? Now, there's some really cool things you can do with this. I'll show you in just a minute that you can do. You can also control the transparency of the highlight, which is really cool. So if I make my object somewhat see-through here, you'll notice that the specular actually has an alpha channel as well. And as I make that less, you'll see how the highlight becomes less or more. Why would you do that? Well, because on let's say a glass marble that's got a light blue tinge to it. You can see through the marble, but you would not be able to see through the highlight if the highlight was powerful enough. You see? That highlight would actually block whatever light was coming through the marble from the other side. So it gives you that control. I mean, this is really cool when you think about it. The amount of control that you have over simple things like this is really awesome. The other thing that you can do is you can control the Fresnel, okay, which is like an index of refraction for the material. In other words, watch as I bump this up. And it's not working. You see how it's really hard for you to see, but notice how the color has changed here. The blues are along the outside, and there's almost nothing in the middle. Let's take our alpha up a little bit here. Just a little bit. What you're saying is that you're telling this, a Fresnel lens, by the way, is a special kind of lens. It's made down in Corning, okay, so not too far away from where we are, and they focus light very intensely. They're great for lights, especially if you're in a studio or something. As a photographer, I've used Fresnel lenses all the time, okay? They're awesome. They focus the light and that sort of thing. Now, you can totally, play with that, and it kind of creates this clear center. It's really cool. I was wrong about it's kind of an index of refraction, but not really. But you can kind of see as I go increase here, if you look really carefully, you can see multiple textures of the reflections still there from around the surface. And then as I increase that Fresnel, you can see how the center starts to go perfectly clear, as if our object is focusing the light inside itself. It's really cool. Anyway, so you can play with all these things. It's really awesome. There's a lot of other things. I mean, if you've got particles, you can talk about strands and stuff like that to make hair. I mean, it's really cool. And a lot of these other things. The other thing is, this is kind of cool. There's a shadow controller. Now, this is really awesome. You can literally say that this object cannot receive shadows. So if something passes near it and casts a shadow on it, this will not have the shadow cast on it. You can do that by the object, which is really cool. You can say cast shadows only, and you can adjust the darkness of the shadows that this object casts. I mean, there is so much stuff that you can play with here. Just kind of see how they work. So anyway, we've kind of got a thing going on here. I'm going to take my transparency off. I want to make this a solid object. And oops. What did I do? Oh, I had the cast only checked on. So cast only, it's interesting. So cast only means it makes the object invisible, but it will still cast a shadow. Huh. I didn't notice that I had that still checked on. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got this kind of blue shiny object. So you might think, okay, we're done. Nope, not yet. Because now we can go over here to our textures and we can add a new texture. And textures give us a whole new thing. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click on, instead of my texture, I want to hit my material. Now what you'll notice right now is that it's kind of, if you look really carefully here, you know what, I'm going to go back to my material and I'm going to turn off the mirroring so we can see this better. There we go. I'm going to go back to my texturing. So you can see, and by the way, that's a really great thing to do. Sometimes you get mirroring and reflections and then you put some transparency into it and then you realize you want to add texture, but you can't really see what you're doing anymore because it's semi-transparent or it's got a lot of reflection. Just go back to the material, turn those things off, work with this, and then come back. So you notice I've got kind of a cloud texture right here, which you can see pretty obviously, okay? It's set the clouds. I can set it to a whole, I can set it to a whole bunch of things, okay? Ocean, wood, and it will change the, see there's a wood texture, believe it or not, and you can see these different things that you can put onto your object, just noise. So I'll just put the Voronoi. That was pretty cool. It's kind of like a cellular texture. It's kind of cool. And then I can go down here and I can click on material, and you can kind of see how it's applied. But what's weird is it's got this, my blue color is gone. And this always drove me nuts. Like, why is my blue color gone? You know? Well, it's because right now, when you go down here to the influence, okay, so let's turn these off here for a second. When you go to the influence, you notice this is influencing the color. And the second color that it's mixing with is this pinkish purple color, and that's the default. So I can go in and click, and I can make this a darker blue, and you can kind of see the change that it made here in the object, a lighter blue versus a darker blue. I could say, no, I don't want it to influence color at all. What I want it to influence is, usually, you want it to influence the normals. And this is really cool. So take a look at what it's doing. When I talk about it influencing the normals, what it's doing is it's literally putting a bumpy texture onto the object. Now I can also control that texture here. See, it says Voronoi. If I had selected clouds, it would say clouds. I can actually sit there and change the scale of the bumps, okay? You'll notice that it works with the highlights to create a different look. Okay, I mean, the intensity, I can bring the intensity down to make it a little bit more subtle. Okay, sometimes it takes a little while for it to update, so be patient. Okay, I mean, there is so much stuff that you can play with to get a cool texture. Now, what's really neat is if I go back to my materials and I turn the mirroring back on, you'll see how that starts to look really wild. Because it literally deforms the surface of the object, and it will calculate all of the reflections and how they will get warped and everything. Now, if I go, now this is about the time I start playing with this stuff. This is about the time I start to render a test. So let's take a look here. We're going to have some problems here, and we'll deal with those in a second. So I'm going to go to my little camera here. And we have our rendering, and I'm not going to worry about any of the other presets right now because I'm not actually rendering a movie, but I'm going to set it to new window so that it pops up instead of taking, if you don't, it'll take over your 3D view, which I don't like. And I'm just going to hit image. So it's just going to render a simple image. Boom. And there we go. So you can kind of see what's going on. Now, it doesn't have a lot of reflections. Why not? Well, we got a light source, but there's not much to reflect, people. It's just two objects. And one's a flat gray cube. And the other's the sphere that reflects, and it's not going to reflect itself. Okay? I don't have an environment yet. We're going to talk about environments later on this week. That's what we're going to be doing. Okay? But I thought I'd set you on this first because it's just fun. Okay? So also keep in mind things like mirroring and all that sort of stuff. Not going to be perfect. Okay, I mean, because we don't have a real environment. So you might want to watch that. So just click that out of there. The other thing that you can do, let me just show you something else that's kind of cool. I'm going to turn normals off. You can also check the alpha. This is really sweet. So let's turn this off. Okay. And I can make part of the texture a really thin alpha. Now it's not showing me the alpha here. But the idea would be that it would be transparent only in certain areas. This would be really good for clouds. Set a cube, put a cloud texture on it, set the alpha to be the low 0 alpha where the black is of the clouds, and you'll see that it will like basically undulate like clouds. And I mean, it's really, really cool. So you can see transparent through certain sections of an object. Not quite sure why it's not working here. Probably because my rendering shader's not set to right, but we'll deal with that later. I just want you to play around with it. You can also swirl colors, like I said here. And again, see, I'm having problems seeing it, and that's because of the mirroring. Oops, wrong button. So go here. The mirroring can really, especially, can mess things up. See if that works now. No, still doesn't work. Okay, I'd have to play with that. But anyway, I could, like I said, color. You can also check out your specular highlights and create different highlights in different areas. And Mirroring, you can have it mirror only in certain places, which is also not working right now. Probably because my rendering settings are off, but I don't want to get into rendering settings right now. So then usually what people want to do is they want to play with the normals and colors. So I can play with colors, which is kind of cool, okay, and make things look very different just based on these couple of things. You can also do multiples. Ready? So not only can I have the color set, but I can also have the normal set. So now it's not only is it putting the pink on the outside, but it's also putting these ridges on the outside, and the blues are now in the center of each of those little divots. Okay, so you can start combining them. You can also start layering them. Okay, so if you take a look here, if you go up, you can have multiple textures applied to the same object. Okay, the order that they're in matters a lot, by the way, a lot. Okay, but it's very cool. You can also add materials on top. So you could do things like, let's say you were designing a car, you could put a sticker on the car, and instead of wrapping it around the whole object, you could say, no, I want it on the left door. That would be a layer that you could add on top of your object. So it's kind of like Photoshop in a way, too. There's really cool things that you can play with. Don't get too lost with it, but those are basically, those are the basics. I mean, that's the basics of adding textures and so on and so forth. Just be mindful that sometimes, especially with the mirroring and the transparency, if you set mirroring and transparency first in the material here, it can really obscure what you're trying to achieve when you start going to the textures, okay? So sometimes it's best to turn those off. You play with them a little bit, then you just go uncheck them, go back, start adjusting your textures a little bit more, and then you'll be able to go back and turn on the mirroring and so on and so forth as you go along. The test render is really good too, okay? Go to the little camera, make sure you set it to new window. I find that that's very helpful, okay? And then also you take a look at your object from different angles. So go here and then hit another image, okay? Just so you can kind of see. Don't worry about the really harsh edged shadows. We're going to talk about those forthcoming as well. Just take a look at the top surface. We're going to fill those shadows in a little later on with our rendering settings and our world settings. Any questions? That's it.